Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch Podcast with our amazing host, Dr. Taniko Victoria. She curates a space for women where all women are encouraged to collaborate and do not collide. Join us on the couch tonight. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Queen's Couch on tonight. I'm excited to have you join us on tonight. Hello to everyone that's tuning in. Tonight, we have a treat for you. I have none other than Coach Tanya Fisher with us tonight. Tanya is the CEO and founder of Bloom While Broken. It is an amazing group that helps repair mother daughter relationships. She has an amazing, triumphant story. And so tonight we're going to dive in. But before we dive in, I want to give this disclaimer. What we are sharing tonight is in no way going to take the place of seeing a licensed clinical therapist. We're going to share our thoughts. We're going to share some tips, tools, and strategies, but this is in no way going to take the place of you seeking spiritual, mental well being, and health. We are just here having a conversation. So I wanted to get that disclaimer out tonight. And so, welcome to the couch. And this is a safe space where you can just be you. Hello, Tanya. How are you on tonight? Thank you for being on the Queen's Couch.
Good evening, Dr. Taniko. Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor.
You. I'm just so excited about you being here. I'm gonna just dive right in. Tell everyone your origin story. How did you start Bloom while broken? And just a little bit about what you do and all that you have to offer for us on tonight.
Okay, well, thank you again for inviting me on the Queen's Couch. This is such an honor, and excuse my lighting. I don't know what's going on over here, but we'll get through this. But again, I am Coach Tanya Fisher, and I started Bloom While Broken upon the death of my daughter, who passed away at 35 years old. During that time frame, we were actually not speaking. At least 2 or 3 months before she passed away, we weren't talking, and the whole process was devastating. Of course, she passed away in her apartment, in her bed, and no one knew she was there till probably a week or so after, when she was discovered by maintenance. I had been trying to call her but couldn't get in contact with her. My birthday had passed, Mother's Day had passed, and it was unusual for her not to contact me, even though we had a falling out, so to speak. So, as you could imagine, that was just devastating. It was traumatic. And I still, go through an emotional times, from time to time. It was 3 years on May 10th that she had passed away. And the most horrific thing about it is that I wasn't allowed to see her. As I mentioned earlier, she had passed away, and they think she may have been transitioned a week or even 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks before she was actually found. So the condition of her body was at the point where they just would not allow. I mean, I fought to see her because I hadn't seen her. We had argued, and I just wanted some kind of closure, but I wasn't allowed to do that. And so, if you could imagine, with everything that had gone on, and the fact that I couldn't even see her to touch her one last time. And she was in Miami at the time, and I was in Atlanta, and she had been there during COVID. So I hadn't even seen her in at least 2 years. Um, and so that's how Bloom While Broken was started. Actually, prior to that, and I say it was a setup, but I was walking my dogs, and I saw a tree, and it was like the Holy Spirit said, "Hey, go look at the tree." And I was like, "Okay, it's a tree." But at the time, we had had a lot of storms, and there was one huge branch that was broken, and so he, kind of looked. I said, "Okay, it's a broken tree branch." Nothing was exciting about that. We had major storms in the area, so forth. But he told me to look down, and I looked down, and there were some blooms on the tree, and I was like, "Okay, this just happened, so no biggie, right?" So probably a few days before I learned of my daughter's transition, I was walking my dogs back in that same area. And when I looked, so again, kind of beckoned me to the tree. And I said, okay, the branch was still there, but he said, look down again. And so when I looked down this time, peaches were actually growing from a broken branch. And so he said, see, you can even bloom even in your brokenness, even while you're broken, bloom and produce. And I was like, okay, and I'm thinking like, oh, that's a good topic, to talk on. That's a good one. And little did I know, a few days later, I learned that my daughter had transitioned, and that whole bloom while broken took on an entirely new light. And so that's how Bloom While Broken got started.
Wow, that is really amazing story, heartfelt story, and just to know that from that situation, all the amazing things you do. You come on Clubhouse every Saturday and you talk about different topics. You coach women. You really want to see women have healthy relationships with their mothers, whether it's the mother wanting to have a relationship with the daughter or the daughter wanting to have a relationship with the mother. You're really there to navigate and just help them bridge that gap. So tell me, what was it like your first time telling this story? Because I've heard you tell it so many times. What was it like the first time you told this story? What was it like?
Um, it was very emotional. I cried through it. I'm able to tell the story a little bit better without getting really emotional now. But at first, when the Lord shared with me after, and I'll say this because after the funeral, well, we had a memorial service for her. So after the memorial service and everything, after family members die, generally the phone calls stop, the text messages stop, all of those things stop. And I remember sitting in a chair one time and just crying my eyes out because it had hit me so hard that, my daughter was actually gone. The fact that I couldn't talk to her, that we were angry with each other and we didn't come to a resolution in our relationship, all of that hit me really hard. And that's when the Lord spoke to me and said that you will not stay in a perpetual state of grief, but you will help other mothers and daughters um, to help mend their relationships so that they don't go through what you're going through. And so for me to tell the story, it's really emotional. At the beginning, it was very emotional. And then I'm also an author in a book, a collaborate effort, uh, um, friends, family, I'm sorry, family, friends, and guys, just slipped my mind. I'll get that in a moment. But um, I had to write my story, and I wrote about the day I found out about my daughter and all that transpired during that time frame. And I cried all the way through writing it. I did. So telling the story, initially it was very emotional. Sometimes I couldn't get all the way through without crying, or I had to cut it short. And definitely writing about it was definitely very emotional, but it was healing in at the same time.
I just wanted you to just kind of share that story because a lot of times we never know the story behind what's makes someone so passionate about what they do. And so I am definitely on the Queen's couch wanting people to heal. And that is my goal. That is what I want people to do. That's what I want to happen to individuals. I want women to heal. I want you to feel whole. I want you to feel that you're able to come in this space and be able to be transparent. So I did a poll in my group, and individuals said that they didn't have a good relationship with their mother. Some said they were working in their relationship with their mother. Some said they had great relationships. I was going to show a clip tonight, but I'm not going to show that clip because it may trigger a few people. So I'll tell them about this clip. It's a talk show. I I can't think of her name. She's this comedian and she does this talk show. In the clip, her daughter. So the mom is was on drugs. She went to jail, all these things. And so her daughter was in a relationship. And her daughter was in this relationship with a guy. And the guy um was not right. And she was trying to get out of a relationship with. So the mother calls her a dumb hoe. And so the daughter was so hurt. You could see in the interactions in the clip. And she said, "Did you say that to me?" And so the daughter calmly said to her, um, the mother said, "Yes, I said it. You don't know anything about life." And that's what the mother said. And so the girl said to her, "Well, you're saying that because you want me to be you. You think I'm you, and I'm not going to have a baby when I'm 15 like you." And then she said, "I'm not going to sell crack like you, and I'm not going to go to jail like you." And she said, "I might not be as smart as you think, but I'm not as dumb as you." And so in that moment, the mother slapped her. And so I was watching this clip, and I could tell that what the mother was trying to do was project her fear of her daughter repeating the same cycle again onto her daughter, but it was causing her daughter pain. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about how sometimes our fear as a mother that our daughter will not make our same mistakes, that they will not be us, that they will not perpetuate this cycle that we may have done, causes us to damage that relationship because we're not respecting who they are and who they're trying to be. So what are some things that you would tell the mother in that situation that I described?
Excuse me, unmute my mic here. But one thing I tell mothers is that we need to guide and not control. When our children become adults, we had hope. Our hope is that we instilled everything that we could possibly instill in them, that we know to instill in them, to lead them on the right path. And even in the situation that you just talked about, even if it's something that we've done, because sometimes our children do learn from what we've done and they learn not to do it, do those things that they've seen us do and how it affected their lives, basically because their mom, may have not made the proper choices. But one thing that we have to do is guide our children. And as they get older, especially as they're adults, because once they're grown, let's face it, they're on their own and they no longer have to follow our rules, right? Especially if they're out of the home. And one thing that God has me share with many of the women that I deal with, when they're grown, stay out of their business. You cannot control them. You cannot control them. You stay out of their business, allow them to do, praying that you have given them the proper structure. And even if you haven't, there's still things that you can share with your children to help them think about things. Don't try to control their relationship because they'll resent it, and they end up not wanting to be a part of your life and you'll drive them away. So, one thing that we have to do is allow our children to make their mistakes. But if they come to us asking for guidance and asking for our opinions, then that's when we give it to them. One thing that we shouldn't do as well is not say, "Well, I told you, blah, 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 blah." Then you're still alienating them from you because who wants to hear that? Yes, you told them, but I don't want to hear somebody throwing that in my face if I've made the mistake. The thing is to just love them. Like, people make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but here's how you can rectify it, or here's some things that you could do to help you along the way. So there's a difference in, justifying your being right and you're still not helping their situation and their cause.
That is so good. One of the things you said that I really loved, you said, stay out of their business. And I think sometimes when we have our adult children, we have to learn to respect them and respect their boundaries. And when you don't do that, sometimes it can cause the gap to get farther and farther apart, and it cause your relationship that you're working to build and you're working to construct to be not as strong as it should be, because there'll be a lot of resentment. They will tolerate you, but they won't be your friend. They may love you, but they may not like their mother. And so I don't want to be the mother that is not liked but loved. And so being able to respect their boundaries and realizing that they're going to make their own mistakes and they're going to chart their own path helps them to do that. And I grew up without my mother. My mother was murdered when I was 11. But I do remember some of our relationships. I remember um, growing up, you know, in our family, I wasn't raised by my mother. I was raised by my grandmother. My mother was there, and so I used to want her to be different. I used to want her to be a different way. And then she gave her life to the Lord. She started going to church. She just was a different mom than the mom that I knew when I was 8 or 9 or 10. And when she passed away, it was like I didn't get that chance for us to have that relationship that I wanted or I longed for. And so that really affected me for years and years and years in the relationships that I had, in the female relationships that I had, just decisions that I made about my life and decisions when it came for me with children. It was just a lot of different decisions that being without that good motherly relationship caused. And so, what are some of the things that you feel when you don't have that mother, when you're not mothered? I tell people when you're not mothered, sometimes that causes a lot of different things to happen. It causes more trauma, more pain. Um, what happens when a daughter is not mothered and then she has a daughter? Um, how does that affect their relationship? The mother wasn't mothered, and so she really doesn't know how to mother her daughter. And so what types of trauma have you seen or have you learned in your work that has happened because a woman hasn't been mothered? And so she doesn't really know. Because believe it or not, when you have a baby, I don't know what lies people tell you, you don't automatically become motherly. I can tell you that for a fact. You don't automatically get these oohs and ahs. I know that's the TV and you see the people crying. That is a lie. That's not always like that. And especially if you experience postpartum, you may not even want to hold your baby. You might be depressed. You might not even know what's going on. So that thing that people say you're automatically motherly, that's not true. And so, how do you bridge that gap to help someone who hasn't been mothered, who doesn't know how to mother, and maybe have wants to be motherly but doesn't know how to do that? What can you share with those women?
One thing that I would share is be honest with yourself. You talked about postpartum and all those things that go on. Their situation, and I'll share my situation was that when I had my daughter, I wasn't ready for another child. I wasn't ready to be a mother again. I have a son, that's the oldest child. And then I had my daughter at the time. I just wasn't ready to have another baby. And it's that I didn't love her, any of that, but I wasn't ready mentally, emotionally, financially, any of those things. I was struggling, with just having one child, being a single parent. And so what that brought about was resentment. And I didn't even realize that until after my daughter passed, that I had a resentment towards her. But what's so funny about this thing is that I was afraid to have an abortion and all of that. But, because God wasn't like that. But, it's silly because I wasn't afraid to have sex to have her, So we have to be real with ourselves. We have to be real with ourselves. We have to understand that, we have a responsibility. We put ourselves in that position. Um, and so we have to be real. Now, if you're, had maybe wanted a child, but came, had the postpartum depression and all those things that go with it, you just have to be real. Don't beat yourself down because it happens. And sometimes other people want to make you feel bad that oh, what's wrong with you? You have this beautiful baby, and even if you're married and, they're there, our emotional well-being it can trigger either any way it wants in any moment. And having a baby is a traumatic experience, period. I don't care if you had a C-section, I don't care if you had regular childbirth, it's traumatic. And our bodies take a toll. And not only that, our bodies, but our emotional well-being, our minds, our mental state goes through a process. And so we have to be honest with ourselves first and then seek the help that we need. It's okay. And for those that are Christians and, are believers in God, it's okay to see a therapist. He created them. Just make sure it's a therapist that agree with your values and your morals, Christian counselor, per se. But it's okay. And we need to invest in ourselves enough to seek the help we need. Not, because sometimes relatives, we love our family, we love our relatives, but sometimes our family can be our worst critics. Oh, get over it. I had 10 babies and, you just have this one and you act like you're about to die. No, but I am. And I feel like I am, So we have to be careful who we live with, who we not live with, but let in our space, right? You talked about boundaries earlier. We have to sometimes set boundaries until we're able to heal and get the help we need so that our mental and our emotional state is in check. And so those are the things I would suggest. Be honest with yourself on how you feel, seek the counseling you need, and then surround yourself with supportive people, friends that will support you, friends that will be honest with you and help you through the process, family that will be honest with you and help you, not those that criticize you or, tell you what they went through and, you'll be all right. Because no, at the time you don't feel like you're going to be all right. But you need to get the help and support that you need.
That is so true. One, getting the help you need, being honest with yourself. And that's one of the things we as women, Black women, because I'm a Black woman, so we don't know how to be vulnerable. We don't know how to be transparent. And because we've been told so long that we're strong, that a Black woman can make anything happen and Black don't crack. And I was listening to this podcast one day and they were talking about mother wounds. And she said at the time, she was a psychologist, she said, yeah, everyone says Black don't crack, but your insides are full of holes and trauma. And we know how to look beautiful on the outside, and we know how to, put on airs. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. We tell ourselves that. But when everything inside of you is falling apart, your relationships are falling apart, you're emotionally not there for yourself, you're detached from your daughters or your mother, you're detached from trauma that could have happened. You don't really understand why certain things happen. And so you decide to be what I call numb, because I walked around years for numb. I mean, I was just this hardcore person. Just I had to be tough. I didn't have anybody. I didn't have a mama. I had to be tough. I just took on this role of being tough. This because all I got was tough love from the women around me, from the mother figures, from my grandmother. You had to be tough. You had to be strong. So I wasn't when I didn't know what I wanted to do, when I didn't know how life would happen, when I had my own child or what would I do, it really you didn't have anywhere to go. You didn't know how to say, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you help me? Because you were taught that you're automatically going to know what to do. Something's going, this eternal clock's going to pop open on you, and you're just going to be the best mother, the best woman, without trauma. But we just don't know how to be honest and vulnerable about our truths. We don't want to say we're sorry. And sometimes what can mend the relationship is I'm sorry to your daughters. What can mend the relationship to your mother is I'm sorry. Let's start over. I didn't know you felt that way. Or just being able to honestly navigate life in a way that is feasible. And sometimes it's not easy. It's not always easy to have these conversations. I call them the hard conversations. It's not always easy to have hard conversations with your mother. It's not always easy to say, growing up, I didn't feel like you were there for me. Um, I didn't feel like you were around as much as I needed. And maybe it was because you were working, but it's not the time for you to say, I was working and that's why I wasn't there. But it's a time for you to listen and say, I understand that. And how can I be there for you now? A simple apology can mend a relationship that is dwindling. And I am a testament of that. A simple apology. Sometimes all you want is, I'm sorry, I've been hurt, I understand. I'm going to respect what you want me to do and what you don't want me to do. And that's sometimes what it takes. A simple apology. And sometimes as a mothers, I call it the mother entitlement. We are entitled as a mother because I birthed you and I brought you in this world. I don't need to apologize to you. But I'm here to tell you, if you don't have the relationship you should with your daughters, you might need to start with an apology with no explanation. Because an apology with an explanation is like they haven't been heard. But just a straight apology and listen to what they tell you and don't rebut, just listen. And then you tell your friends or your circle that you're upset by what they said, or it was trauma by what you said, or whatever. But you need to apologize without an explanation unless they ask you for explanation. So what did you say about I call it the mother entitlement. Mother entitlement is the word I'm giving it. I don't know if it's a real term, but I hear it all the time. People make you feel that no matter what your mother did, you have to forgive her or you have to um be her. That's the only mother you have. But if the only mother you have is causing you trauma, what do you do? Do you neglect who you are as a person and be hurt more because it's your mother? Or what do you do? So what do we tell the daughters that they're like, they don't care about talking to their mother. They could care less. What do you tell those daughters that they're just having this hard time dealing with their mother because of mother entitlement, as I like to call it?
You're exactly right. I say it all the time. It's okay to apologize to your children when you're wrong. It's nothing wrong with that. Number one, we're not right all the time. We make mistakes. We say things that we didn't mean. If you think about it, motherhood is stressful, right? And so we deal with the stresses of the day. We come back and we take it out on our children, more than likely our children, our spouses, or whomever is readily available, because we're not going to take it out on our bosses because we need that job. We're not going to take it out on anyone else because we have to maintain this image. But what we do is take it out on our children. And we may say some things out of our stress, and it is okay to apologize. Now, that's one thing I made sure I did. I apologized to my daughter. I apologized to my son. And it's okay to do that. You have to set aside pride. Trust me, they'll respect you more. They will honor the fact that you have are woman enough or man enough, if you're a male, to apologize to them. It's okay. It will help enhance your relationship, and then also when you don't apologize to your own children, you're teaching them that they don't have to apologize when they're wrong. You're teaching them that same behavior. So when they get in situations where they should apologize, then they won't, because I was never apologized to, or they'll have that attitude because that's what you're teaching them. And like you said, the mother entitlement, we have to get through that. We have to, because again, we've made mistakes and we didn't do everything right, because motherhood and day to day, that's a learning process. Being a mother, every day is a different day. And so even though there's these so-called manuals or whatever, most of them written by people who don't have children. But honestly, so we have to learn the ropes day by day. And another thing you talked about was making sure that you listen to your children when they want to speak, even when they're young. Take the time, set aside time to listen, because trust me, if you don't listen to them, they will find someone else that will listen to them, and sometimes they'll find the wrong person. Because trust me, those snakes out there, those sexual predators, those sex traffickers, they know and can smell vulnerability a mile away. And so, if your children being naive and young, and you just need somebody to talk to you and to make you feel better about yourself, they can run into these type people that will take advantage of them. So, one thing you don't want to do is push them into other people's arms, basically. So you want them to be able to come to you. Yes, I work every day. I'm tired. I'm stressed out when I get home, but you're also a mother, and you have to make sure that you make time for your children. Even if it's a time like after, what I used to do was I would come in and say, okay, my daughter loved to talk. And as soon as, I come through the door, she hit me with things. And so I had to finally put down, some rules. Okay, 30 minutes, give me 30 minutes to go shower, kind of rest, and then I'll come out and talk. And that worked. That helped them understand that I need a moment, then they need a moment. I said, gather your thoughts, get everything together, what you want to show me and share with me. And that helps. But you have to carve out that time with your children. And then I say, do away with, well, I take care of them and I, do this and I feed them and, and I this and this and this. But no, that's different, because that's your responsibility. That's what you're supposed to do. But you have to make sure that you listen to your children. There's too many things out there. You have the internet, you have now AI, you have all kind of things out there now that your children can get into if you don't pay attention to them. Because as children, I mean, even as adults, we crave attention. We want somebody to be able to talk to and share with, and your children are no different. And when they're young, those are the best times to let them know, I'm here for you. You can come and talk to me about anything. And trust me, some things you may not want to hear, some things you just aren't ready for, but you have to be open enough to listen to them, not give advice unless they ask for it, like you say, or, mommy, what do you think? Then it's a time to kind of share your thoughts, not out of anger or emotionally, but just calm as you can possibly be, and let them know that you're here for them. Because if you don't, they will find others to share, and it may not turn out the way you would like it to.
That is so true. It happens all the time. It happens when you don't hear a voice, you don't have a voice. You They just kind of shrink back and they find ways to get your attention, but sometimes it's not the best way to get your attention. And so that's one of the things I always um, tell people: you want to be the dominant voice in your child's life, not from fear, but from respect. Because your child listening to you out of fear is totally different from your child's, from you having the dominant voice in their life. And that doesn't mean that you're overpowering. That doesn't mean that you are, I would say, forceful. That just means that your words have weight. They feel heard. They feel in a mutual relationship of respect and care. And when they asked you, hey, I don't want you to do this. I really prefer this not to happen. And you disregard what they say because, as I call it, you're entitled as the mother and I know what's best. They You're not the dominant voice anymore. You're that bully. And so the worst thing you want to do is bully your daughters. This is just such a complex, so many different ways you can go when you talk about mother daughter relationships and how they can evolve into beautiful relationships. I know people who have amazing relationships with their daughters. They're great, they're loving, you see them, they're always together, they're doing things together, their daughters want to spend time with them. you know those are great. There are great mother daughter stories out there. There's people who love their daughters, who they've cultivated. It may have been in later years, but they've cultivated and they've woven a relationship of respect, mutual love, um, and togetherness and connection. And so, if anyone out there you want that relationship, um, Coach Tanya gave us some great things. One, be honest with yourself. Two, get the help you need. And sometimes it's okay that you may need to both get therapy together, or you may need to seek, spiritual counseling, whatever you need or you feel that's best for you. You may need to do that to be able to ensure that you have the relationship that you should have. So I want to take a turn on today and talk about. So I got a little thing that I have. We're going to talk about the church mothers today. So you might need to cough a little bit. You might need to get yourself together. Because I've been in church all my life. And we're going to talk about the church mothers today. Now, I love my church mothers. Oh, I love them. They so sweet. But sometimes the church mothers be out of pocket. And, so um we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how to navigate when your mother is disrespectful to you. It could be a church mother, it could be a mother figure, it could be anyone. We're going to talk about how to navigate that. Now I'm just giving you a disclaimer. I love the church mothers, but I will tell you, the church mothers sometimes can be out of line. Now we just gonna put it on out there. If you're a church mother, I'm sorry. If your mama a church mother, I'm sorry, but the church mothers be out of line. So how do you? Let's talk about that. Let's switch it up, because sometimes people don't have mothers. They're like me. They have mother figures. You know. I hear people all the time. We need to bring the church mothers back, but do we? Because the church mothers will make you feel like you didn't have a relationship with God. If you didn't do this, you didn't act like this, you didn't speak like this, you didn't move like this, you didn't do this. And so, how do we have the older women, as in the Bible said, supposed to teach the young women without disrespecting them, as have happened over the years in our church?
Well, now. Listen,
Yeah.
listen, I'm like you. I grew up in church all my life too, and there were some very loving church mothers, but there were some that was just, way out of order. But at the time, we just felt like we had to respect them, whether they hurt us, our feelings or not, because they were elderly, right? However, I think that a lot of them, when you don't, I'll put it this way, most of the time when you don't have control in your house, you assert your control in other areas. When you don't, like sometimes, if like, say you have that boss at work, and if he's very overbearing, micromanagement, 9 times out of 10 the wife is running that house, so he has to have somewhere to run. Right? And so that's kind of how I see, like, church mothers. Yes, some of them are very, are well meaning, and they don't understand, how they hurt people's feelings. And that's mothers in general. You sometimes you teach the way you were taught, or the way, whether you liked it or not. Think about it, our old mothers and their mothers and their mothers. A lot of them were slaves. A lot of them lived in times that were very, now this is not excusing their behavior. So let me set that straight. But if you think about where they've come from and how they were harshly dealt with, a lot of times, how many of you have said, when I grow up, I'm not going to say that to my children, or I'm not going to whip my children, or I'm not going to do that to my children when I have them. And you find out you end up doing the very same thing that you said you weren't going to do, because that's what you know. And that's how you were raised. That's how you were taught. So that's what you know. And I feel like with church mothers, sometimes they do the very same things. And a lot of times the things that they say come from their own hurt and pain that they have not resolved. Right. And so, well, I was talked to that way, but did you really like that? No, you didn't. So why do you feel that maybe talking to someone else, does that make you feel superior? Does that make you feel, in control because you have a position? So you feel like you can treat people any kind of way? No, the Bible also tells us to speak the truth in love, right? So when we talk to someone, and if you're pulling as a mother or elderly person in the church and you want to pull a young woman aside, you speak with them in love. If it's something you see that they could do better, and you do it with love, not criticizing them, not talking harshly to them, because you know what you're going to do? You're going to drive them away from the church. You're going to drive them away as opposed to pulling them closer. What's the saying? That you draw more flies with honey, right? So you have to understand that because you were talked to that way, that's even more the reason to not talk to others that way, right? Because you're hurting their feelings, and we call now church hurt. A lot of that comes from that. People talking to us crazy, and people wanting to come to church to heal and to be healed and to understand, what Jesus that everybody's talking about, who is this Jesus that they're talking about? So, but when they encounter the mean usher at the door, they encounter, somebody that they sat down in a seat and it's a regular church member seat. You're in my seat. That, does that make you want to come? No, it doesn't. It makes you want to okay, I won't be attending this church anymore. No, I'm not going to do that. So the same with our children. You mentioned earlier about something you saw was a clip where the woman, actually cursing at the child or the daughter. And we just cannot do that. You have to, in order to get respect, it's funny to me how people will curse and talk to their children any kind of way, even their adult children, their young children, but then demand respect. No, that doesn't happen. How can I respect you when you just cursed me out? You're supposed to be my mother. Yes, I might have made you mad and I might have done some things that I shouldn't have done. But is that worthy of you talking to me like I'm somebody in the street? No, it's not. And so then when I grow up and not respect you or don't want to, be around you, then who is it to blame? You want to blame the child, but no, it's generally our fault. The same with those in the church mothers. And then another thing about being in church, and I'm telling on myself, we have these strained relationships with our daughters and with our mothers, but in church, we are so fake. We go in shouting, dancing, hollering, praising the Lord, and then can't even speak to your own child. Okay, I did it. I'm not, I was angry with her. And then we feel justified. And sometimes we are, because sometimes our children do some things, but we do things as well. And so if we take responsibility for our own actions, and if we get our lives in order and get ourselves together, then, it's nothing wrong with praising God and shouting, but, what are your relationships in order? Because really your relationship with God is supposed to be a reflection of your relationship here on earth with your family members, with your children. Now, I do realize that sometimes you have to set some boundaries. Yes, you may have to, because you can only change yourself, not other people. And as you're working on yourself and trying to get better, there may have to be some boundaries that you have to put in place. Maybe you might not, might restrict the time that you spend with them, especially if, there's conflict all the time. So there's things that you might have to put in place if that's the case until things, kind of come over. But yes, I agree that we have to show more love no matter where we are, no matter what position we're in, and especially in the church.
Yeah, because we got a new breed of teenagers, young people, and they might hurt mother feelings. They might, they might they don't
Exactly. They don't respect. They don't
they're
show
not like
respect.
me, I'm the
No.
latchkey kid, and these Gen Zs, you know, they're not doing it. They're not having it.
That's right.
They're
And
not putting
then,
up with it.
exactly. And then if you say something, and if they say something to you after you be mean and hateful to them, then you're ready to, just throw them out, kick them out, all of those things. But you have to show respect to receive respect. And that's just the bottom line.
That that's it. So I'm gonna leave the church mothers alone. I know some of y'all look a little nervous. I know you're a little nervous. I know you never heard nobody say the church mothers out of order, but they are. All over America, they out of order. I love them. Some of them are, some of them are not. But but you have to be able to be respectful. I have respectfully um checked mothers, and in a nice way. Like respectfully, mother, that I don't think that's really what you should be asking me. And in a nice way. You don't have to be mad. You can just say your piece. I think one time I had on a skirt. It wasn't really short. It probably was to my knee. And so the mother in the middle, I'm walking by. Listen, I'm literally walking by. The mother calls me over in front of everybody. And she was like, I'm gonna need you to do something about that skirt. And I immediately said, no, ma'am, mother, I don't think so. And walked off. So so we have to learn to be respectful. And of course, I laugh about it now because I'm a lot better than I used to be. But I would have that smoke for the mothers. Because my grandma was a mother in the church and we would get it all the about things, but you know, just being respectful. And as we are wanting people to come into church, and as we wanted people to mend relationships, we have to model what good relationships are like. Even with our spiritual mothers, either with mothers in the church, even just in general. And if you don't have a great relationship, it's never too late. It's never too late. You can start where you are. I tell people all the time, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. At this moment, you might not be speaking to your mama. You might be like, I'm not even dealing with her. She's full of trauma, she's full of drama. So come to your grips. If you have said, hey, I can't have this woman in my life because of trauma and drama, then maybe you just need to tell her the truth and say, hey, look, mom, I feel we need to heal in this area and you're not ready yet. And just you may need to pray for your mom. Or if your mother have said some things to you that you don't even like, or you felt like she wasn't there for you, it's time for you to say, tell your mother how you feel. And yes, it can be triggering, it can be hurtful, it can be emotional, but you can't live your life unhealed because it's going to affect every area of your life. And I can say for myself, not having great mother daughter relationships have affected so many areas of my life. um, Work relationships, girlfriend relationships, relationships with the opposite sex, just always wanted to be guarded and in control and control what would happen in the narrative. All of those things can happen from not having a great mother daughter relationship. I was looking at this study and it says, what is the best thing you can give a child? And people were saying education and this and that. And do you know what is the best is what it was the number one thing that you should give a child is a happy mother. So not having a great mother daughter, either mother sons, because there's relationship with mothers and sons, but being a happy mother or a happy woman is very important when it comes down to your children, because you would think it's education, you would think it's the best schools, you would think it's extracurricular activity, but the research showed that the best thing for a child is a happy mother, a happy father, happy parents. And because a lot of times we don't see the happiness, we see our mothers working to the bone, working. Some of their single mother, you may see that. If your mother was in abusive relationships, you may have seen that, and you make these inner vows, I'm never going to do this. And then you find yourself in those same situations. So, whatever the situation is, whether it's you seen things, you may have experienced sexual trauma or assault because of things that have happened with your mom, or maybe your mom didn't know, or whatever it is, it's time to open up and say what it is. It's 2024. It's time to deal and heal. It's time not to be walking around mad at your mom, or mom, it's time for you to stop being entitled and thinking your daughter is ignoring you because she just ignoring you. No, it's something you probably did, and she's afraid to tell you. So it's time to heal these relationships. It's time to heal the mother-daughter relationships. It's just time for women in general to heal and be open and transparent. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation on tonight. And I felt like you were the perfect person, um, Coach Tanya, to have this conversation. So before we close tonight, what would you say to a mother and daughter who they love each other and they just don't like each other? They don't like being around each other. It's just so much trauma and tension. What would you say would be a pathway to mending that relationship? What would you say to that mother and daughter tonight?
My mute button was stuck there. Okay. Thank you again for having me. This has been an awesome conversation, and I hope that, even if it's a little nugget, those in the listening audience were able to grab something that they can take with them. But one of the things that I would share is, and I always say, it starts with you. It starts with you. So we have to stop pointing the finger at each other, but heal ourselves. There is a motivational speaker. His name is Jim Ron, and he says that you should work on yourself harder than you work on your job. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. You should work on yourself harder than you work on your job, on your business, on any other thing in your life. Work on yourself. Take a look in the mirror. And it's hard. It's not easy because we all think we're perfect and we're not. We all have issues and things that need to be resolved. And once we work on us and start, understanding the truths about who we are and what we can do to correct some things that are not so pleasant about us, about our personality, our character, how we do things, it's never too late to change. But the first thing I would say is that, and communication. Communication is the foundation of any relationship. And you have to be able to not only talk about what you feel, but listen to the other person. A lot of times we don't empathize with each other. You know, as daughters, we may not understand what our mothers have gone through that they never shared with us. But if you take time to listen and want to understand who they are, and then we find out things, then we can empathize with them a little bit, put ourselves in their shoes, and maybe have a better understanding of why they are the way they are. So many of our elderly women, even our young women, have experienced trauma of molestation, of rape that they never shared, but they held it deep down inside because either they were told they would, they would get killed or their family would get killed and all of this. And when you're younger and those things happen to you, you believe that. And so you may have never shared that, but it affected your life, so traumatically, that it causes issues in all your relationships. So sometimes we just need to stop and listen to our parents and understand where they're coming from. We may not like some of the things they do. We may not even understand it, but if we listen hard enough, then maybe we'll have a little empathy. So communication is key. Number two, I'd say forgiveness. We have to be able to forgive. I don't care how hard it was, how mean it was. I don't care, what the situation was. Even if your parent is not there, your mother may not be with you, but if there was some things that she did that traumatized your life or didn't do that traumatized your life, forgive, whether they're here or not. And if you can't talk to that person, write a letter. You might want to mail it, you may not, but get it out. I'm a big proponent for journaling because, and I'm not typing really, because when you write, you have to take time and you're motioning, and it takes a lot to just sit there and write something out. And your emotions are more into it, and how you feel are more into it. So journal your thoughts, put it down on paper. But I would say the two things is communication and forgiveness. And of course, number three, which will be my final point, is get help. We have counselors, coaches, therapists all over. We have, and it might not necessarily be in your church, because sometimes churches, if there's a mother that is faithful to the church, sometimes you go to them, that couldn't be your mother. Don't, as you said earlier, don't talk about your mother like that. She's a good woman and this, and this. But mama is kind of, she needs some help, at home. She might be different in the church community or in the other community, but at home, she's like, a terror on 2 feet. What's that Tasmanian devil thing? She may be that in the home, because we're good at putting on fronts. We're good at putting on fronts, and especially in church or things where, at places where people, show some type of respect for us, right? Then we're good at that. So again, I would say communication is key. Well, let me start over. Number one, forgiveness is key. And you forgive not just for them, but for yourself, most importantly, so that you can begin your healing process. And forgiveness, sometimes it has to come in steps. I realize that, but we are to forgive. Then communication is very important. Communication, learn how to communicate. Use the I statements, not you did this, you did that, because what you're doing is alienating someone. You're pointing the finger, you're being defensive, and that person will not hear you. But if you explain that I feel this way when, that's said, or when, something is said, or when something was done, this is how I felt. Then you're laying it down on the line. You're opening the door to better communication, right? And then lastly, please seek therapy. I am a life coach, and I know Dr. Taniko, you're a life coach as well. There's lots of life coaches. There's counselors, biblical counselors, if you're Christian, counselors, therapists available to speak. Mental health is no joke. We see time and time again that even actors, people that we have looked up to talk about their mental health issues and how emotional, their emotional issues have happened. So it's okay to seek help, for a better you and a better relationship.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us on tonight, Coach Tanya. This has been amazing. This conversation about navigating the complexities of mother and daughter relationships. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And it is ending, we're ending the month of May, but in the month of June, guess what? I'm going to have the kings on the queen's couch. In the month of June, I'm going to have all men, and we are going to talk about mentorship, fatherhood, triumphant stories. And I'm going to have me I'm going to have one of my nephews on here. We're going to have a wide range of ages and just different things. But next week, My mentor is going to be on here on the couch with me, and I am so excited. Pastor Willie Diggs is going to be on here with me on next week, and we're going to talk about the power of mentorship. And so, listen, you don't want to miss the month of June because the Queen's Couch is for the queens, but we can't do anything without the kings. And so, we're going to talk about, the brothers are going to talk on the couch all next month. Nothing but the brothers. So listen, don't forget to join us next week as we kick off our fatherhood and mentorship series for the Black man. Listen, I love all my men, but guess what? It's nothing like a Black man. So listen, thank you. You have been on the Queen's Couch with Coach Tanya Fisher and Dr. Taniko Bursa. And listen, this is the place where queens collaborate and do not collide. Thank you for joining us on the Queen's Couch tonight. And if you don't get anything from this relationship, remember to forgive, heal. It is your season to deal with your issues, heal, and be the best woman that you can be. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next week on the Queen's Couch. Have a great one.
Thank you, Dr.
Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch podcast with our amazing host, Dr. Taniko Victoria. She curates a space for women where all women are encouraged to collaborate and do not collide. Join us on the couch tonight.
Hey,